Hey Navigators, today I am in Mount Dora, Florida. I think it's one of the cutest towns I've ever stumbled across. I don't know, you have to tell me if you agree. I mean, check out that. Are you kidding me? Let's hit the road.
Today we're in Lake County, in the adorable city of Mount Dora, which turns out to be one of the cutest small towns I've come across so far. Hey Navigators, welcome to Mount Dora. Have you guys ever been to the Grand Canyon? The first time I went to the Grand Canyon, and I know there's different ways you can get up to the top of the canyon, but the particular way that I went the first time, you're kind of going up the hill, this road, to the top. And suddenly, when you reach the top, the whole canyon is now visible. And you see the beauty and the size, and it's just stunning. And it's massive. And the silly person in me thought, man, I would hate to have been a frontiers person with their family and, in a cart with a horse, and they're thinking they're getting towards their destination, and they get up to the top and they realize, oh man, we have to go around this canyon. That would take forever. And in a weird way, I'm going to connect the dots here. In a weird way, Mount Dora was like that in the sense that I had heard about it, never been there. So I'm riding through this town, having literally heard close to nothing about it. And suddenly, this amazingly beautiful, adorable small town on a lake appeared out of what felt like nowhere. And I got to ride through its amazing streets, and I was so pleasantly surprised by this ride, and I hope you are too. So as I'm heading into town, I see all these awesome old cars, and this is what I love about vintage car owners, is every once in a while they just want to get together and show off their stuff. And I think that's awesome. My son was really into cars when he was a teenager, and so I got into it with him as well, and we used to go to car shows. There was one in our little town that we live in that would pop up like every year, and it was awesome. But when I saw this, it just reminded me of those times with my son, and so I had to check it out. Aren't these awesome?
Oh my, that's so cool. Hi.
And another cool thing I liked is across the street, they have it. I don't know what this place originally was. I don't know if it was like a small little hotel or some sort of efficiency or something, but I love that they've turned it into this small business area. It looks really cool. It has a retro feel, but there's plenty of parking, and it's inviting. I just love when people can turn older architecture, older buildings into something still viable today. I think it's cool. It's one of my favorite things. Now, Mount Dora really came into its own in the mid-19th century. federal surveyors named Lake Dora, possibly after Dora Ann Drowdy, a local homesteader who settled in the area around 1850 with her husband, though some records suggest that the lake's name predates her arrival. The area was initially homesteaded in 1874 by David Simpson and his family. By 1880, the settlement was named Royalou, after the children of Postmaster Ross C. Tremaine, because his kids' names were Roy, Ella, and Lewis. Royalou. Thankfully, I think, in 1883, it was renamed Mount Dora to reflect its location on a plateau 184 feet above sea level. And that's an unusually high elevation for Florida, and its proximity to Lake Dora, so Mount Dora. In the 20th century, as in most places in Florida, there was a boom in residential and business growth, and that included here in Mount Dora. The community building was built in 1929 during that time. The parks, like the Donnelly and Gilbert parks, were established through community efforts. The town became a central hub for the Chautauqua events in the 1880s, offering education and entertainment, and later earned the nickname as a festival city, which is so true. This town hosts so many festivals. Currently, it has the Mount Dora Arts Festival, the Mount Dora Spring Festival of Arts and Crafts, the Sailboat Regatta and Mount Dora Earth Day. It has the Mount Dora Blueberry Festival, the Mount Dora Seafood Festival. I guess I don't need to say Mount Dora in front of all of them, but I'm going to. The Mount Dora Chamber of Commerce holds the oldest bicycle festival annually. It has the Mount Dora Craft Fair, the Mount Dora Paint and Garden Fair, and the Jane Austen Fest. Yeah, this is a town of festivals, appropriately named. Heck, it even has the Scottish Highland Festival with Scottish events. Isn't that amazing? All right, here's some stats for you. Mount Dora is 9.5 square miles. That's not too bad. Small, but not super small. The population is about 18,000 people, and they live in just over 7,000 residences. The median home value is just over $400,000. That's a lot. And the average rent is about $2,300 a month. As far as demographics go, 7% of the population is under 24, 12% is between 25 and 34, and 21% is between 35 and 54. Between 55 and 64 is 11%, and over 65 is 33%, the largest portion of this demographic. So it looks like it's a solid retirement community for sure. As far as education, 93% are high school grads, 5% are attending college, and 38% are college graduates. The per capita income is $40,000, which is $3,000 less than the national average, and the median household income is $70,000, which is about $8,000 less than the national average. And 16% of the population lives below poverty. 63% of the population is white, 22% are Hispanic, 13% are black, and 2% are Native Hawaiian and or Pacific Islanders. That's an interesting subset in a small little town. All right, everybody, you know what time it is? It's time to feed Algo the alligator. As you know, algorithms rule the day. Computer programs are just looking to see what you do while you're watching this video. And if you do certain things that it likes, that it's programmed to like, then it will share this video with other people like you that like this video, or other people that like videos about travel, Mount Dora, or other places, riding motorcycles, or what have you. So what it's looking for are triggers, and that's why people ask you to like and subscribe. What they're really asking you for is to do something that algorithms like, and that's like pushing buttons, liking things. You don't have to. I'm just saying that this is the way the platforms manage their content. So if you have enjoyed this video, or any of the other videos that I've done on this channel, any of the other cities that I visited on my Honda Navi, then, do that. Watch the video all the way through, or click buttons or subscribe to things or write comments. I don't know, whatever you want to do. Again, I'll leave that entirely up to you. But any way you can feed the algorithm would be greatly appreciated. Okay, so this beautiful gingerbread sort of Victorian home, it's pretty amazing. It was built in 1893 by John P. Donnelly, who was one of the people that helped build the Alexander House, which eventually became the Lakeside Inn. Now, Donnelly was Mount Dora's first mayor. He arrived in 1879, and he ended up owning much of the downtown and waterfront. He donated land for the churches and the fire department and community projects, but this house was a gift to his wife, Annie. And it's a beautiful example of intricate Victorian design with turrets and gingerbread trim, and it really reflects the town's prosperity at the time. One of Donnelly's legacies was that he was called the father of the tangerine for his citrus innovations, and that's one of the ways that he accrued so much of his wealth. The house is now a Masonic temple. So most people think that UFOs and all that really came into play and became really popular during the Cold War era with Roswell and Area 51. But Mount Dora has an experience that happened decades earlier. In 1897, Mount Dora residents were swept up in apparently there was a national UFO craze going on at the time. In the 1890s. I have never heard about this. Now, locals claim to have spotted a mysterious airship hovering over Lake Dora at night, complete with strange lights. Newspapers speculated that it was an alien craft or a secret inventor's balloon, because remember, blimps and all that were just starting out. This is a big thing then. It actually did turn out to be a hoax, sadly, because apparently some boaters, they not only tell tall tales about fishing, but I guess tall tales about UFOs. But it did put Mount Dora on the map. Because at that time, the United States was going through this rapid technological and cultural evolution. This was the Industrial Revolution, after all. We were going from a rural nation to an industrial nation, and there were all these inventions like the telegraph and the telephone and all these different experiments with flight, like hot air balloons and things like that. So the public was really fascinated with this technology. Also at the time, science fiction writers like Jules Verne were writing stories with futuristic airships, and that also sparked the imagination of the people. And what's interesting is in 1897, the Wright brothers were still years away from the first powered flight in 1903. So the idea of manned airships just seemed like fantastical, but maybe possible, you know? And it was against this backdrop that this wave of mysterious sightings swept the nation. It kind of like blended this like technological optimism, you know, with speculation about aliens and secret human inventions. And it's the same stuff that happens today. I personally call this the flying car theory. And what I mean by that is after the Wright brothers took flight, whenever there was a future image, like in movies or something, Metropolis or whatever, they always had flying cars, right? Everyone assumed that because once we learned how to manage flight, everyone would be flying everywhere. And what I mean by the flying car theory is that whenever new technology comes out, it seems to me that we apply both the best and worst case scenarios to that possibility. Like self-driving cars, remember that was supposed to have already been in place by now. Once the technology came out that maybe that computers could somehow manage driving cars, not Navis, but cars, then suddenly the cool thing is that these cars would be able to drive you anywhere and you wouldn't need to drive at all, right? The bad thing was anyone who drove a car for any reason whatsoever for business was out of a job. Both the greatest positive and the greatest negative, because this new technology was put into our psyche. So it doesn't surprise me during an industrial revolution with all this new technology and all these amazing inventions coming out that were really hard to comprehend for people who were farmers just 20 years earlier, that their minds would go to the most amazing and the most dangerous at the same time. And Mount Dora wasn't the only place that was dealing with this UFO craze in the 1890s. In Aurora, Texas, there was a report where locals claimed, see if this sounds familiar, that an airship crashed, killing a Martian pilot who was buried in a local cemetery. Now, some people think it was a publicity stunt to boost the town's profile, but, it's still a legend. And it sounds a lot like Roswell, right? 50 years later, 60 years later, I don't know the exact time frame, 50 years, I guess, where there was some alien craft that crashed and there were bodies. Decades later, same basic story, kind of. In Chicago, in April of 1897, hundreds of people in Chicago reported a bright object moving over Lake Michigan, some claiming to see a crew aboard. The Chicago Tribune even published these accounts, which kind of mirrors maybe that's where the Mount Dora thing came into play, right? Another airship over another lake? I don't know. And in Iowa, that same month, witnesses claimed that an airship landed and its pilots repaired it before taking off again. So they all have similar vibes, similar stories, similar themes. The technology at this point was airships instead of flying saucers. But they're similar. That's so interesting to me. Another curious note about Mount Dora is it has two connections to fiction storytelling. In 1981, a movie came out called Honky Tonk Freeway. It stars Beau Bridges, Geraldine Page, and Beverly D'Angelo, to name just a few. It has an IMDb rating of 5.2 out of 10, so I don't know if you want to watch it, but it does exist. And Mount Dora is in that movie. As a matter of fact, they painted the buildings in downtown Mount Dora pink for the movie. Having a movie shot there was great for the economy. The merchants loved it. It helped restore the downtown area at the time, which is awesome. And it gave the town some national publicity. And during the height of the Cold War in 1959, Pat Frank, a novelist, wrote a book called Alas, Babylon. It's an early example of post-nuclear apocalyptic fiction, and it's considered one of the 100 best novels of science fiction. It deals with the effects of a nuclear war on a fictional small town of Fort Repose, which is based on Mount Dora. So yeah, a movie and a book. Gotta love it, man. These small towns, they just find some way to get into the creative space, and Hollywood keeps showing up for some reason. It's cool. You just gotta love that stuff. Okay, now every town has its own quirky little histories, and that's what I love. I love to track down and see if I can find something really unique about each location. And I found a couple with Mount Dora. First, in the 1980s, they used to do turtle races. They had an annual festival that included this turtle race where locals would bet on these slow-moving reptiles. And one year, organizers discovered that some of the participants had secretly, quote-unquote, doped their turtles by attaching tiny weights or using lettuce to lure them, leading to a humorous scandal that briefly banned the event. I mean, come on, it's a turtle race. Just let them run or walk or do nothing. This is the Lakeside Inn. It was originally built in 1883 and it was called the Alexander House. And this is Florida's oldest continuously operating hotel. It's kind of hard to see from my Navi here. I mean, I'll give you the best shots I can from the cameras I had, but it kind of went back in and you weren't allowed to go back there unless you were staying there. So it's the best I could get. Now, this place was built by Civil War Colonel James M. Alexander, John P. Donnelly, and John A. McDonald. And it started as a modest 2-story, 10-room winter retreat for hunters and fishermen and the like. And over time, it grew into a social club. People like Presidents Calvin Coolidge and Dwight D. Eisenhower stayed there. Thomas Edison and Henry Ford, who ended up having homes down in the Sarasota area, I believe, and they would stop by and stay there. The grounds of the inn are very large, and it features Victorian architecture, has oaked trees, and like just beautiful veranda. This really symbolizes Mount Dora's rise during the railroad era, which is in the late 1880s. And when the railroads came to Florida, that's where all of the seasonal tourism started. And that's where all the Victorian architecture and all the homes that are in Florida were built around that time. And that tourism continued into the 1920s when there was a land boom and a land bust right before the National Great Depression. So it's not a surprise that Mount Dora's rise in popularity and growth happened at the same time. So older buildings often somehow get connected to ghosts. I'm not saying it's not true, it's just one of those things that always seems to happen. And the Lakeside Inn is no different. Again, it opened in 1883, and it reportedly hosted an unexpected guest in the 1920s, a ghost named Emily. And she's believed to be a former guest who just loved the inn. Now, staff and visitors have reported sightings of a woman in Victorian attire wandering the halls, with some claiming she rearranged furniture. I don't know if that's true. I've never stayed there. I've never seen it. But if you have, I would love to hear your story. Put it in the comments. Okay, here's another funny story related to Mount Dora. So apparently in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, a small circus was passing through. You know, these circuses would travel by train and have all the cars that would be connected together, that would have the people and all of their equipment and clothes and animals and everything like that. Well, apparently, one of the train cars broke loose on the railroad tracks near downtown, and the car carrying the clowns and props rolled unmanned through the town. It kind of startled everybody, but this train car stopped harmlessly, thankfully, and this is the best part. The clowns in the train car performed an impromptu show to calm them down, turning this like chaotic moment into a show, which is what performers do. I love that.
Today was such an awesome day, and I am so glad I have made riding my Navi a priority. I got to tell you, if you are over 40 and you are struggling with finding relaxation, you just got to make it happen. Use whatever means you need. Like, I use the channel for accountability. I make sure that I make a promise to myself about how many videos I'm going to shoot, which forces me to get out there. And I got to tell you, there's days where I do not look forward to getting up at 5:30 in the morning and driving somewhere in the middle of nowhere to shoot a video. But once I get out there, once I get on the bike and I just go and relax, it is so awesome. It is, I just can't recommend it enough. So whether it's riding a Navi or some other motorcycle, going for a drive, going on a jet ski or sailboating or something, just make time for it. It helps so much with my mental health. It's so important, and I hope you make it a priority, because you won't regret it.
Well, Navi-Gators, I really hope you've enjoyed this little jaunt through Mount Dora. It was such an unexpected pleasure for me. I was so surprised to find this little town just so adorable. It's great. I like these older small towns where the roads are thinner and so everything's more compressed. One, it makes it more fun when you're riding a motorcycle through it. But two, if you need to walk the area, it's a lot quicker walk to get from one side of the historic downtown to another. And it's so beautiful. It's just such a great place. So if you're ever in the area, please stop by. I've had an awesome time, and I hope you have too. And as always, I want to thank you for spending your time with me. As you know, I believe time is the most precious treasure we have. And the fact that you have spent any of that with me means the world to me. I'm 100% serious about that. Thank you so much. But remember, when you're on the road, be safe, be kind, and be generous to others. But most of all, have a great time. All right, I'll see you guys next time.